If you're tired of tolerating disrespect and ready to stand your ground without sacrificing your dignity, then this video is for you. Today we're diving into 5 brutally honest, possibly even controversial strategies to handle disrespect with composure and self-respect intact. These aren't about lashing out or losing control. Instead, they're about reclaiming your power in a way that demands respect, without you ever having to beg for it. By the time we're done, you'll have every tool you need to set clear boundaries, shut down toxic behavior, and walk away with your confidence unshaken. So get ready, because the way you handle disrespect is about to change forever. Let's get started. Let's be honest, some people just love to test your limits. They interrupt, make passive-aggressive remarks, and act as if your time and feelings don't matter. And what are we supposed to do? Just smile and let it slide? Not today. 1. Embrace silence as your answer. Here's a secret most people overlook. Silence is a weapon. When someone disrespects you, one of the most powerful responses isn't an argument, a comeback, or an explanation. It's nothing at all. I know what you might be thinking. Isn't silence just letting them get away with it? It feels passive, like you're backing down. But here's the truth. Silence isn't weak. Silence is a choice. And sometimes it's the loudest, boldest answer you can give. When someone throws negativity at you, what they really want is a reaction. They want you to engage, to get flustered, to defend yourself. But when you don't take the bait, when you simply let their words sit there without acknowledgement, it forces them to confront their own behavior. That silence, it's deafening. People who disrespect others usually thrive on conflict. They're looking for a fight, an argument, or just some form of validation that their words have power over you. But when you refuse to engage, you strip that power away. Your silence says, "I'm not playing your game. You don't get access to my energy." I remember a time when I put this into practice. There was someone in my life who just couldn't resist taking little verbal jabs at me, always phrased as a joke, always just subtle enough that calling it out would make me look like the sensitive one. You know the type. One day he made another unnecessary dig at my work, clearly just to get a reaction out of me. Normally I would have tried to explain myself, maybe even thrown a sarcastic comment back. But this time, I did something different. I looked at him, raised an eyebrow slightly, and said nothing. No defense, no rebuttal, no reaction. Just a pause. The room fell quiet. He shifted in his seat, suddenly looking unsure. That silence stretched just long enough to be uncomfortable, and then, for the first time, he backed down. That was the last time he pulled that on me. Why? Because when you refuse to react, you take away their power. You make them realize that their words don't affect you. And for people who thrive on getting under your skin, nothing is more frustrating than realizing they can't. But here's the real magic of silence. It doesn't just control the situation. It protects you. So often we feel this pressure to respond, to explain, to prove ourselves. But why waste your energy justifying your choices to someone who has no respect for them? Why let their words dictate your emotions? Silence is like a filter. It blocks out negativity before it even has a chance to sink in. The moment you stop feeling the need to react to every rude comment or passive-aggressive jab, you free yourself. You take back your power. I'll be honest, learning this wasn't easy for me. I used to think that if I didn't defend myself, I'd look weak. But over time I realized something. Every time I engaged with disrespectful people, I walked away feeling drained, frustrated, and honestly worse about myself. But when I started choosing silence instead, I felt stronger, lighter, more in control. It was like I was reclaiming a piece of my energy every time I refused to respond. So here's my challenge to you. The next time someone disrespects you, don't rush to react. Instead, take a deep breath, hold their gaze for a second, and say nothing. Let them sit with their own words. Watch how quickly the energy shifts. Watch how uncomfortable they get, and most importantly, watch how powerful you feel, because sometimes saying nothing at all is the most powerful statement you can make. 2. Stop explaining your choices. Let's get one thing straight. You don't owe anyone an explanation for how you live your life. Think about how many times you've made a decision, only for someone to immediately ask, why? Why didn't you go to that event? Why did you quit that job? Why are you doing things that way? People act like they're entitled to an answer, like your choices require their approval. But here's the truth. They don't. Your decisions are yours, and you don't have to justify them to anyone. Now, this might sound a little harsh, maybe even rebellious, but let's be real. When someone questions your choices, are they really trying to understand, or are they looking for a way to judge, criticize, or challenge you? More often than not, it's the latter. They're poking holes, making you second-guess yourself, or trying to pull you back into their way of thinking. And that's why the most powerful thing you can do is simply stop explaining yourself. Here's the deeper issue. When people pressure you for an explanation, it's usually because your decision challenges their worldview. Maybe you're taking a risk they're too scared to take. Maybe you're stepping outside of their comfort zone, and that makes them uncomfortable. So they start questioning you, not to learn, but to push you back into a version of reality that feels safe for them. But here's the thing, you don't owe them that comfort. You don't need to reassure them that your life choices make sense to them. I learned this the hard way when I left a stable job to pursue something I was actually passionate about. The moment people found out, it was like I had announced I was moving to another planet. Why would you leave a stable career? Are you sure this is a good idea? What if it doesn't work out? At first, I felt like I had to explain myself. I'd go into long speeches about my plan, my goals, the reasons why this decision made sense. But no matter how much I explained, the questions never stopped. The more I justified my decision, the more they pushed back, as if waiting for me to realize I was making a mistake. And then, one day, I decided to try something new. The next time someone asked, why would you leave that job, I simply said, because I wanted to. That was it. No details, no breakdown, no justification. And you know what happened? Silence. They didn't know what to say because I had taken away their power to question me. The conversation ended right there. And that's when I realized the more you explain, the more people feel like they deserve an explanation. But when you give them nothing, they have no room to challenge you. The real beauty of not explaining yourself is that it's freeing. It's standing firm in your own truth, knowing that your decisions are enough, simply because you made them. Look at the people who are truly confident in their lives. Do they go around explaining their choices to everyone? No, because people who are secure in themselves don't need external validation. They know that the only approval that matters is their own. I used to be the kind of person who felt like I had to justify every move I made, as if convincing others would somehow make my choices more valid. But over time, I realized that explaining myself wasn't proving anything. It was only making me doubt myself more. So I made a pact with myself. If someone asks about my decisions, I'll give a simple, direct answer. If they push for more, I'll smile and move on. And you know what? My life got lighter. The more I stopped explaining, the more confident I became in my own path. So here's my challenge to you. The next time someone questions your choices, resist the urge to explain. Just say, because I wanted to, or that's what felt right for me. Then let the silence do the rest. You'll be amazed at how powerful that simple statement is. Because at the end of the day, your choices don't need anyone else's stamp of approval. They're valid simply because you made them. 3. Embrace the silent stare. Let's start with one of the most subtle yet powerful tactics, the silent stare. At first, it might seem too simple to be effective. Just staring, really? But trust me, this technique is far more impactful than you might think. When someone is openly rude or disrespectful, their goal is often to provoke a reaction. They want to see you flustered, defensive, or even angry. It fuels their sense of control, making them feel like they have the upper hand. But when you respond with nothing more than a calm, steady gaze, completely unbothered, it throws them off balance. Suddenly, the power dynamic shifts. Now, I get it. This might sound passive-aggressive, but in reality it's anything but. A silent stare isn't an act of aggression, it's a display of self-control. There's something deeply unsettling about someone who refuses to react as expected. It sends a silent but clear message. I see what you're doing, but I refuse to play this game. It's a way to reclaim control without saying a single word. Let me share an example. I was in a meeting once where a guy just couldn't stop interrupting me. Every time I tried to speak, he'd cut me off, talking over me like my words didn't matter. At first, I tried to interject politely, but he wasn't having it. So instead of continuing the struggle, I simply leaned back in my chair, crossed my arms, and locked eyes with him. No blinking, no expression, just 5 solid seconds of silence. You could feel the shift in the room. The energy changed. The others at the table started watching him, wondering what he'd do next, and then, like clockwork, he started to stumble over his words. He looked around, visibly uncomfortable, and suddenly he wasn't so eager to interrupt anymore. He had no choice but to acknowledge the space I was holding. From that moment on, he spoke to me with a level of respect that hadn't been there before. The silent stare isn't just about making the other person uncomfortable. It's about reinforcing your own sense of self-worth. Too often, when someone disrespects us, we feel the need to defend ourselves, to argue or to explain. But why? You don't owe anyone an emotional reaction. You don't have to prove your value to someone who refuses to see it. This technique is particularly effective with people who are used to getting away with disrespect. Many of them have never been called out, never had to face the weight of their own words or actions. When you simply look at them, letting their own behavior hang in the air, it forces them to sit with what they've done. You're not telling them they've crossed a line, you're showing them, and most people don't like seeing themselves in that kind of mirror. Beyond just handling disrespect in the moment, this approach strengthens your own confidence. I used to be the kind of person who would nervously laugh off rude comments or try to justify myself when questioned, but over time I realized how exhausting that was. The moment I learned to just sit in silence, to let that quiet tension do the work for me, everything changed. It felt like an act of quiet defiance, an unspoken but undeniable declaration of self-respect. So, the next time someone tries to undermine you, don't rush to react, just stop, hold their gaze and let them feel the weight of your calm. You'd be surprised how quickly the energy shifts and how empowering it feels to stay completely in control. Because at the end of the day, the silent stare isn't just about making a point to them. It's about making a statement to yourself. I respect myself too much to be dragged into your negativity. And that is a message worth sending. 4. Keep your distance. Let's be real. Sometimes the best way to deal with people who don't respect you is to put space between you and them. I know, it sounds harsh, maybe even a little cold, but here's the truth. Not everyone deserves a front row seat in your life. If someone continuously disrespects you, one of the most powerful things you can do is step back and create distance. This isn't about being dramatic or holding grudges. It's about self-respect. It's about recognizing that your energy is limited, and not everyone should have access to it. Keeping your distance isn't an act of hostility, it's an act of self-preservation. Think of your life as an exclusive club. Not everyone gets a VIP pass. And if someone constantly crosses your boundaries, makes you feel small, or drains your energy, why would you keep them close? The problem is we're often conditioned to tolerate disrespect. We tell ourselves, maybe I'm overreacting. They don't mean it that way. I should just let it go. But let's flip that perspective. If you keep people in your life who consistently undermine you, you're basically inviting them to a buffet where they get to take, criticize and judge as much as they want. and then we wonder why we feel exhausted, anxious, or frustrated. Keeping your distance gives you clarity. Clarity to see things as they really are, free from guilt, manipulation, or obligation. I learned this firsthand with a so-called friend who always had something negative to say about my choices. It wasn't blatant insults, but little digs, passive-aggressive remarks about my career, my relationships, even my music taste. At first I brushed it off, thinking, that's just how they are. But over time I noticed something. I was constantly walking on eggshells around them, always bracing for the next criticism. I started questioning myself more, feeling drained after every interaction. Then one day I made a decision. I didn't confront them, I didn't start a fight, I simply stopped giving them so much of my time. Instead of seeing them every week, I saw them once a month, then even less. And guess what? I felt lighter. I felt free. And in that space, I realized just how toxic that friendship had become. Here's where a lot of people get stuck. Guilt. But they're family. We've been friends for years. And look, I get it. Society teaches us to be loyal, to be forgiving, to be nice. But at what cost? Let me tell you something. Protecting your peace isn't selfish. It's necessary. You are not obligated to keep disrespectful people in your life just because of history. Time invested doesn't mean you owe someone unlimited access to your energy. And here's the deeper truth. Keeping your distance is a powerful statement. It tells people, I am my own priority. You don't have to play the role they expect. You don't owe anyone access to your mind, your time, or your emotions. When you create space from toxic people, you make room for the ones who actually uplift you. The more time you spend around people who respect you, the more confident and fulfilled you feel. The less time you spend around those who tear you down, the less influence they have over your thoughts, your mood, and your life. I won't lie, this wasn't easy for me at first. I used to feel so guilty about distancing myself from people, even when they weren't treating me well. I'd worry, what if they think I don't care? What if I'm just being too sensitive? But over time I realized something. Distancing myself wasn't just about removing negativity. It was about creating space for growth. And the moment I gave myself permission to do that, my life changed. So here's my challenge to you. Think about the people in your life who constantly disrespect you, who make you feel small or drained. Then ask yourself, do they really deserve this much access to me? If the answer is no, don't be afraid to take a step back, because sometimes the most powerful way to demand respect is to simply walk away. 5. Hold your head high. Let's talk about one of the simplest, yet most powerful ways to handle disrespect. Holding your head high. I know, it sounds like basic advice, maybe even a little cliché, but trust me, this one is a game changer. When dealing with people who don't respect you, your posture, your presence, and the way you carry yourself send a louder message than any words ever could. Disrespect is often about power. When someone talks down to you, makes cutting remarks, or tries to undermine you, what they're really doing is testing your confidence. They want you to doubt yourself. They want you to shrink, to avoid eye contact, to second-guess your worth. But when you stand tall, shoulders back, head high, you send an unspoken message. I know exactly who I am, and nothing you say or do will make me feel less. Confidence is unsettling to people who thrive on disrespect. Why? Because their power comes from making others feel small. When you refuse to let their words or actions touch you, when you stand firm in your own worth, it throws them off balance. I've experienced this firsthand. There was someone in my life who always had a subtle insult ready, always masked as a joke, always delivered with a smirk. At first I'd try to brush it off, but deep down it got to me. I found myself dreading conversations with them, constantly preparing to defend myself. Then, one day I decided I was done playing that game. I walked in with my shoulders squared, my head held high. Every time they made a snarky comment, I didn't flinch. I didn't roll my eyes or snap back. I just looked them in the eye, smiled, and carried on like their words were background noise. And you know what happened? They backed off. Because suddenly their words weren't landing. They weren't getting the reaction they wanted. It was as if they realized, this person isn't affected by me anymore. And just like that, their power over me vanished. Here's something most people don't realize. People who don't respect you hate seeing you confident. It messes with their worldview. They want to believe they have something over you, that they can shake you. But when you walk with unwavering confidence, it disrupts that narrative. It makes them feel powerless. But let's be clear, holding your head high isn't just about physical posture. It's about mental posture too. It's about knowing that no matter what anyone says, your worth isn't up for debate. It's about carrying yourself like someone who already has everything they need within them. Because you do. Look, I wasn't always this way. I used to shrink when people disrespected me. I'd avoid eye contact, try to laugh things off, try to prove myself to people who clearly didn't value me. But over time I realized something. The way you carry yourself dictates how people treat you. When you move through the world like you're worthy of respect, people notice. The more I held my head high, literally and figuratively, the less people even tried to disrespect me. So here's my challenge to you. The next time someone tries to undermine you, don't react. Instead, take a deep breath, pull your shoulders back, and keep your head high. Look them straight in the eye with a calm, steady confidence that says, I see you, but I'm above this. You'll feel the difference instantly. Because at the end of the day, holding your head high isn't just about posture, it's about self-respect. It's a silent, powerful statement that says, I know who I am, I value who I am, and nothing you say can change that. And there you have it. 5 powerful ways to handle people who don't respect you. Because let's face it, you can't control how others behave, but you get to decide how you respond. Whether it's holding your silence, refusing to explain yourself, or simply walking away, every strategy comes down to one thing: self-respect. The more you stand firm in your worth, the less space you give to people who try to tear you down. Life's too short to waste time seeking validation from those who will never give it. The more you focus on protecting your energy, the more you attract people who actually see your value, who uplift you instead of dragging you down. So, hold your head high, set your boundaries unapologetically, and remember, respect starts with you. If this video gave you something to think about, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more content on building confidence and owning your power. And if you've ever had to deal with disrespect and found a way to shut it down, drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your story. Thanks for watching, stay strong, and remember, you teach people how to treat you by the way you carry yourself. See you next time.